All right. Thank you, Joanne. I appreciate it. Good morning, everyone. I'm Kathy Blackburn, and I thank you for joining us this morning for the Fiscal Year End webinar. I will walk you through the slide presentation today. We have multiple staff members on the line from the Controller's Office and Purchasing that can answer any specific questions you have as we go along. So please don't hesitate to reach out and ask us in the chat box. All right, let's get started. So today we're going to talk about year-end deadlines for purchasing, team card, travel, accounts payable, accounting. We'll talk a little bit about some recurring payments, and then we'll go over some general topics as you review your ledgers. So we are fast approaching fiscal year end right now. That's amazing. When we come back from the short break, we will be into June. So please remember to go ahead and make sure that you've looked through your area and you have sent AP all your invoices. Please don't wait on that. Go ahead and send them to us as quickly as possible. If you have any POs, begin to clear those out and send in those invoices for those current POs, and beginning and look at what you may need for the next fiscal year end. Go ahead and start doing that now. Don't wait. And we hope that all of you have been reviewing your ledgers all during the fiscal year and making adjustments as you go every month end. If you have not, please make sure you do that now. Look for things that you will need journal entries for. If you've got any reclasses from the AP module, you're going to need a journal voucher, or the travel and expense module, you're going to need to complete that expense module correction form. Go ahead and get those done and get those into us so we can get them processed. And if you've had any invoices that match against a PO and you've had a match exception, for whatever reason, you should have been receiving system email notifications if you were the requisitioner. Please go ahead and respond to that and take care of whatever needs to be taken care of so we can get those invoices processed for you. For purchasing, if you have a P card, it's going to be really important that you get that final expense report in for that June billing cycle. Get it into the system, into PeopleSoft, and have it fully approved no later than June 30th at noon. We know that there's a very short window for that, so if you can go ahead and start working on that now, or as you get into June, go ahead and start working on that and have that ready. So when you get to that last day of the month, you're ready to get it processed and fully approved in the system. Remember, your expenses won't hit your ledger unless that expense report is in there and it's been fully approved. If you run into any questions, you can always reach out to Kim Rose in purchasing, or you can email purchasing@sc.edu. If you have any things that you need to purchase for this current fiscal year that you don't have a PO for yet and you need to create a requisition for that, you need to make sure that you get that requisition in the system no later than June 18th by noon. That is our deadline for that. So go ahead and be looking and start working on that. Does anyone have any questions about purchasing deadlines, or would anyone in purchasing like to pipe in for any additional tips?
Good morning, this is Kim. Just want to agree with everything that Kathy just discussed with you concerning the purchasing card. Just have one recommendation. You certainly can manage it any way you'd like to, but internally you all may want to consider asking your card holders or creating an internal deadline prior to the end of the billing cycle for June, just to make sure that those transactions will occur in this fiscal year, if that's important to you. So again, just wanted to make a recommendation that internally you all may want to establish some internal deadlines. Someone just asked the questions, will the the June statement closed on June 27th, it will. Every month is the 27th is the end of the billing cycle, and June is no different. It's still the 27th, but just one time a year, we do have some pretty strict deadlines just to ensure that those transactions will be allocated and approved. So the keyword allocated and approved by the 27th of the month. And that is the posting date.
Thank you, Kim. Do we have any additional questions at this time?
No questions right now.
All right, thank you, Joanne.
You're welcome.
Team card deadline, it's the same as the purchasing card deadline. You're going to need to be able to get that final expense report for those June billing cycle in PeopleSoft, get it processed and approved no later than 30th at noon. Of course, if you run into an issue and you have any questions, you can reach out to teamcard@mailbox.sc.edu, but make sure that you go ahead and get that in the system. Please, if you have any questions about that, or if Becky or Melinda would like to chime in for anything about the card, please do so.
Kathy, this is Becky. I just wanted to mention the team card deadlines. The June 30th deadline is the same, but that billing cycle ends on the 25th of June, so you can actually pull that statement on the 26th. You got a couple more days with team card than you do with P card, so that's a good thing.
Great. Thank you, Becky. Appreciate that. All right. Travel office deadlines. For any employee expense report, make sure that it is in the system by June 18th. It needs to be fully approved and sitting at the level for travel to review it by June 18th. That deadline is also true for any non-employee or student TRVs. They need to be in the travel office by June 18th. And this is a good time to start cleaning up anything that you have out there that may be pending. For example, if you have a TA that's pending where the travel dates have already passed and that TA didn't get fully approved for whatever reason, you need to go out there and clean that up and get that out of the system. Jade and her team can answer any questions on that. Please reach out to the TE office and ask any questions you have, or call Jade directly and she'll be glad to help you through any of those processes. Jade, do you have any other tips for year end for the travel office?
Yes, ma'am. This is Jade in Travel, and I just want to say, if you need some help, like if there's trying to figure out maybe what's outstanding for your area, if you'll just let us know, we can send you some information that can help you run some queries to, find out what's out there for your department or your area. Also, we will start sending out notices to about things that are pending. So TAs that are approved and the dates have passed, but no expense reports have been created and the TA associated with it. Also expense reports that are in some approval status, so they may be pending or submitted approval. We're going to start sending that stuff out kind of regularly as we get closer to the end of the year. So just be on the notice for that type of stuff. And if you have any questions, you can always reach out to us in the travel office. I put our email in there, the TE office email box. That is a good place to send questions for just general things that we can help you with.
Great, thank you, Jade. All right, Kim has put down in the chat that don't forget that the P card billing cycle ends on the 27th, that the electronic statements are available on the 28th, and please plan accordingly to be able to meet the deadlines for fiscal year end.
Yeah, and Kathy, this is Becky again. Can I chime in just a minute? Again, I know we ran into this problem last year, maybe the year before that. If a charge hit your statement, I should say, on the last day of the billing cycle, either the 25th or the 27th, depending on what kind of card it is, it takes a day or two for that transaction to actually interface into PeopleSoft. So if you get started on the 28th and you're looking at all of your transactions in My Wallet and you're not seeing one, you may need to wait a couple of days to be able to pull that in so that your expense report will match your statement. So we have had that, but hopefully the year end lands pretty well on the calendar wise. So hopefully we'll be fine, but it could be that you don't see something until the morning of the 30th. So just keep that in mind. Have everything else ready, just waiting for that last transaction to come across.
Great. Thank you so much, Becky. All right, we're going to move over to accounts payable. The June deadlines, if you have invoices that are paid against a PO, please have them in the AP office by June 21st. That will ensure that it hits your expenses and it has a June payment. Also, for payment request, you're going to want to make sure that your payment request is in the system and it has gone through your workflow, so it's sitting out there for AP to approve it by June 21st. Remember that we have a 7 to 10 day time frame to process payment requests, so we definitely need it by the 21st. Ensure that it gets processed and paid for this fiscal year. Of course, we will continue to work all the way through to the end of the year. And for employee reimbursement non-travel, that is in the travel and expense module, you're going to want to make sure that that expense report is in the system and through the approval queue to accounts payable by the 18th. And similar to travel, you're going to want to clean up any outstanding expense reports that you may have had an issue with or something. You want to go out there and clean that up in the system. I know that Michelle Mooring has been working on that, and she's been contacting people and help them work through cleaning up some of those old expense reports. So if you have any, you are welcome to reach out to her and she will work with you on that process. And also with accounts payable, year-end deadlines. So payment request does not change. That is still June 21st. But if you have an invoice that you have received in at the end of the year, and you have that invoice, you actually have until July 7th for it to get it to us. We will make sure that it is in the system for fiscal year 2021. It will get paid in July, but the expense will actually hit your ledger in this current fiscal year. So please be looking at that and make sure that we get all of that in AP so that it is processed like it should be. Talking about invoices that hit POs, please make sure that if you have a match exception on that, and typically what that is you haven't receipted those goods in the system, so that won't process. The system will actually stop that. It'll put it in match exception, and you should have been receiving, if you're the requester or the requisitioner, you should be receiving system emails, and Michelle Mooring has been sending out emails once a week for anything that's sitting in match exception. If you get an email either from the system or Michelle, please make sure you work that immediately so we can get that invoice processed and in our ledger in the right fiscal year. If you have a budget exception, which means that either your project has expired or you've gone over the budget on your project, you would have received an email or a phone call from Kathleen Spencer, and she typically is asking you for a new chart field for that because you can't use it on that project. So if you receive that email from her, please make sure that you respond quickly so she can get that taken care of. Kathleen, do you have any other tips that you would like to share with the group that you are seeing right now? Please feel free.
Okay, I do not, but always if you've got a question, don't hesitate to reach out to AP or to me personally. We're always happy to help, and especially if it's something that that is year-end related and we're trying to get things pushed through. Don't hesitate to contact us. All
right, thank you. Thank you, Kathleen. All right, we are now going to move on to the general accounting area. So cash and travel advances, for any settlements that need to happen, we need to have them in the settlement mailboxes by June 21st. So even if you have something that your deadline for cash advance is past fiscal year end, but you've spent some of that money already, please do a partial settlement so we get those expenses captured in the right fiscal year. You can find the settlement procedure for both cash and travel advances on the Controller's Office website and submit those settlements to either cash advance at mailbox.sc or TE office for a travel advance at mailbox.sc.edu. It's real important to get those in because if you don't, then they won't hit your ledger in the correct year. Also, in that same light, if you have a participant card and its project ended on or before May 31st, you want to settle that by June 21st. The procedures to settle participant cards are also located on the Controller's Office website. When we get closer to the end, I'll go out and show you where all that's located. And you're going to want to submit that settlement to cards at mailbox.sc.edu. That also goes in line if you have used a business expense card. Same process. We're going to want to have that information by the 21st. And you can find those procedures also on the Controller's Office website. And you'll want to submit that settlement to cards at mailbox.sc.edu. So those are basically our cash advance things. I don't know if Melinda, if you want to talk about the prepaid cards or the business expense cards, or Adriana or Jade would like to talk about cash advances or travel advances, please do if you feel like there's something else that needs to be mentioned at this time, or if anybody has any questions.
Kathy, I think I'm good on cash advances. Just if you have a cash advance outstanding, if you could get a partial cash advance settlement to me by June 21st, that would be very helpful. So we could recognize the expenses in the year that they happened.
Great, thank you, Adriana.
Thank you.
Yeah, and that goes for the part cards and BE cards too. Whatever you can get settled, even if it's partial, would be great.
Right, and if you have questions about that, please reach out. We will be glad to help you and walk you through that process if you're new to that. All right, let's move on to journal entries. So for journal entries, your period 12 or your June journal entries are due like they always are, one day after the end of the month. So that's July 1st. We will be operating on a period 13 like we always do for year-end journal entries. Their deadline is July 7th. For your period 13 journal entries and uploads, please ensure that you note in the email that it's fiscal year 2021 so that they will make sure that they capture it in the right fiscal year. Also, you know, we've been talking about reviewing your ledgers. Hopefully you've been doing that all year long. If you've noticed that you need to make a correction to something that happened in AP and you need a journal voucher done, or something that happened in the travel and expense module and you need an expense module correction done, please have those completed and submitted June 25th. If you need help with any of those, you are welcome to reach out to the general accounting area. That is Jason Bayshore. He will be glad to walk you through that. Also, if you need to do a payroll retro journal entry and you have something that needs to be reclassified that happens middle of June or June 15th and before that, please submit that by June 21st. Then you should be anticipating what you might need for that very final payroll on June 30th, because you'll have a very short window to submit that payroll retro journal entry, and that will be July 2nd. Jason, do you have any comments or anything else that you can think about from the general ledger area, the general accounting area that you might want to bring up that may help folks as they start working through the next 4 weeks?
Thank you, Kathy. I just wanted to reiterate what Kathy had said. Now is probably a good time to go ahead and start submitting your JEs and your JVs and your expense report corrections. You can go ahead and get whatever you can now cleared up, because that week when we come back from July 4th will be a pretty busy week. So the more that we can get taken care of now will be the better for them. But if you run into any issues, just please feel free to give us an email at the address that Kathy will show at the end of the slide for general accounting.
Great. Thank you, Jason. Appreciate that. Recurring payments, we do offer this once a year. If you have some kind of recurring payment that's the same amount, is 6 months or longer, it doesn't require a PO. So in other words, you would have put it through payment request, and the amount never changes. At the beginning of each fiscal year, we have a handful of these that we put in. We will need that information by June 18th. You need to reach out to Kathleen Spencer directly. She'll review that process with you. And as we start winding this process up, there's a couple things to remember as you start looking at your ledgers. Make sure that your Z funds in your areas are as close to zero as possible, you know, that things have been flowing through like they should. When you look at your revenue, if you've earned something this fiscal year, but you haven't received it yet, you'll need to accrue that. However, on the flip side of that, if you've received the revenue and you haven't earned it yet, somebody's prepaid you, you want to make sure you put that into a deferred revenue account. And now is definitely the time that you want to review anything that you have put into a miscellaneous account. So whether it's a revenue account or whether it's an expense account, and you now know what that expense is, you need to put that into the correct account. Go ahead, and that's kind of following up on what Jason said. Go ahead and start really looking out there and making sure that if you need to reclass something, you go ahead and do that now. Any questions on anything that we've talked about yet? Because I'm going to go out in a few minutes and kind of show you where a few of the resources are on the Controller's Office website. Any questions for anybody specifically? Okay. So most all the information we've been talking to you about today is on the Controller's Office website. You can always find that by going to sc.edu, which is the main website for the university. In the search bar, type controller or controllers. Once you do that, you're going to see the Office of the Controller. You can click on that. We have a wide variety of stuff out here. Under General Accounting, anything for AP, you can click on that if you needed to do a cash advance settlement, if you needed the payment request matrix, if you needed to know where that expense module correction form is, or journal vouchers, all of that information is out here. If you have any questions about travel, that information is out there, and you should be able to either give you a quick reference guide or a form or tell you what you need to do. Our webinar, this one that we're talking about here, the fiscal year end deadlines that I emailed out a few weeks ago is out there in a PDF. This recorded webinar will be out there along with the PowerPoint presentation. If you had questions about the card programs that we talked about, those are out here also. It's going to give you all of the forms that you need for that, including the team card and or anything else you may need. They also have webinar and trainings out there. Let me flip back. All right. And then if you have questions for anyone specifically, here is all of our contact information. Please don't hesitate to reach out to us. You know, you can always pick up the phone and call, but a lot of times it's easier to shoot us an email and then tell us what's going on so we can make sure that we get you to the right person and get you that right answer as quickly as possible. All right. Does anybody have any questions about anything we've talked about today?
They're a pretty quiet group. I think they're experts by now.
I think they are. This is very similar to how we've done it in the last several years. So I just want to take a minute to thank everyone who has participated on the webinar. I appreciate your input from all the different groups and the different areas. We have some fabulous folks here. So please reach out to them. and they will help answer your question.
We did get a question come in. Will the IDC email come out earlier for June revenue?
Jason, is that something you can answer?
Tiffany, I'm not sure which email were you talking about.
While Tiffany's typing, Tim is asking, when can we set up the BPOs for next year?
Tim, I am not sure what a BPO is. Can you tell me what that stands for?
Might be blanket purchase order, maybe?
Yeah, I think that's what that is.
Yes. So,
I can
Lana,
answer
can
that.
you help answer that question?
Yeah, if you can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, so June 1st, so that's Tuesday, you can start entering blanket purchase order requisitions. And just, we did a little webinar last week and gave some guideline to that. If you need me to send that information, let me know, and just send me an email at llw@sc.edu and I can send you the PowerPoint.
Thank you, Lana. So Tiffany came back and said, I believe it comes from Kathy. Some of us need to move revenue to e-accounts. This is for grant revenue that comes back to the college department.
So is that the IDC that happens every quarter? That will not happen until after year end. And we will have it happen as quickly as possible, if that is the one you're talking about.
Okay. No, monthly. Okay, sounds good.
Okay, so Tiffany, let me follow up on that. We'll find out what it is and we will make sure you get an answer for that one.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Well,
Gina's
thank
responding
you, everyone.
to Gina Hamburg is responding to Tiffany saying in June, I typically move what is there. So I'm not sure, Tiffany, if that's helpful for you.
Great, thank you, Gina.
All right, that looks like all the questions, Miss Kathy.
All right, thank you, everyone. Hope you have a great rest of your day. We appreciate you tuning in.